The year is 1460. After defeating the Lancastrian forces outside of Chipping Norton, the Earl of Warwick and his Yorkist host advanced to London. Meanwhile, Somerset and Oxford rallied their forces in the south, recruiting and training new men to make good their losses, before heading north and cutting the King's Road between London and Oxford, preventing new men and supplies arriving from the Yorkist strongholds. Hearing of this new threat to his rear, Edward, Duke of York, broke camp to give battle, aiming to open up the King's Road and secure a decisive victory to support his claims.
So today's battle will see a continuation fight between the Duke of York's forces under this time the actual Duke of York himself and Duke of Somerset representing the Lancastrian forces. There is a special rule for today, is that Andrew Trollope is as yet uncommitted to either faction, and therefore both faction commanders get to argue their case to him. To do that, both commanders roll a dice. The highest number gets to plead their case, and this happens every turn, and then they roll another dice. That dice result needs to be at least one less than the turn number. So for example, if it is turn 4, a 1, 2 or a 3 would be a successful pleading of the case, and Andrew Trollope will join that side. Therefore, naturally, it'll never happen on turn 1 because you can't get less than 1 on a d6. The idea being is that both sides get to plead their case, and you may find that the pleading will go to different factions each turn, and that could potentially swing the game in that one faction's favour. The terrain for today sees a river to the left of the screen that is representing Thames, or at least an element of the Thames. There are some trees, so wooden copse to the left of Warwick's battle. And to the top right corner of the screen you can see another copse of trees to the left of Oxford's battle. There are a number of farmsteads around. The one that you can see top left, the fields themselves are just classed as normal going. However, the trees, so those fruit trees that you can see on the fields, they're the same as the copse of trees, so they class as rough terrain. With the road down the middle representing that road between Oxford and London. So with the Lancastrians going first, they did a simple order of advancing their forces forward, just the one movement, so that their left and right flank are anchored on the two wood blocks, with Somerset's division sitting in the middle as a reserve. Moving over on to shooting. Longbows have a range of 20, and I'm shooting, I think everybody is out of range. Oh wait, no, they are within range, so we'll go on to some shooting. Okay, we'll start with Oxford's unit of longbowmen. Their closest target is the right hand unit of longbowmen of Warwick's division. They have 3 shots. They are marksmen, so they get to re-roll one of their misses. 4+ basic, over half range, or over extreme range I should say, over 12 inches, so -1. So looking at 5s or 6s with 1 reroll. That's none of them, but one reroll. Still nothing from that unit. Moving to the centre, they will be firing at their opposite unit. So this unit will be firing at that unit. Same again, 5s. That's 3 hits, therefore no requirement for a reroll. And the saves of archers are a 5+, and that's 3 that go through. So that unit has now taken 3. And that is at its stamina. No, not quite, sorry. Stamina is a 6 for these. And the third unit, these will be firing at those as they're closest. Again, looking at 5s with the reroll. That's 1 hit outright, 1 reroll. It's a 6, that is a disorder. So that's 2 hits of disorder, saving on 5s. They fail both of those and they take a disorder token. So not very good from a start for Warwick. Very good shooting from the Lancastrians. That's everything from a Lancastrian turn 1. There's no close combat. No one else can shoot because they're out of range or blocked by other forces. And therefore we'll move over to Yorkist turn 1. So that is the end of Yorkist turn 1 movement. Relatively successful. Warwick tried pushing his forces forward and detached a unit of men-at-arms to move onto his flank, just in case Trollope does seem to go over to the Lancastrian side. The mercenaries on the left flank advance forward within handgun range, so they can start firing into those archers in front of them. And with Exeter's brigade, or his division I should say, half of them have moved forward, the archers with a unit of men-at-arms behind support. He did attach himself to the archers to try and rally off a casualty, however he failed. But before that, the second unit of archers can't move because they're disordered, and therefore they have remained where they are. So a bit of a staggered battle line from the Yorkist faction. However, we'll move over to shooting, and we will start from the right, and therefore we'll start with Warwick's archers. They do have the weight of archery fire, or weight of firing in their favour. So they are within 12 inches, so they don't get that extreme range. They're just over 12 inches, but so these 2 units will be firing at that one Oxford formation. So we'll start with this one on the right, and it'll be 4s basic because they're no longer at extreme range. They are marksmen, so that's 2 hits, and they get 1 more as a reroll, and that's a disorder, so that's 3 hits and a disorder. And Oxford will be saving on 5s, and he takes 3 casualties. The second unit, again firing at the same target, but looking at 5s this time because they're over the extreme range. That's 1 hit with 1 reroll. No, that's still the 1 hit. And 1 save of 5 from Oxford. No, that's a fail. So he's now taken 4 casualties and has been disordered. Moving on to Exeter. in the middle. His archers will attack their closest target, which is that unit there. They're just over 12 inches. So they'll be hitting on 5s. That's 1 hit with a disorder and a reroll. That's 2 hits, 2 saves of 5, 1 save, 1 goes through. So they take 1 casualty and they take a disorder. Disorder and a casualty. Right, moving over to the handgunners. So the handgunners are only a small unit. They have 2 dice and a range of 18 inches. Now they should be at their extreme length of 18. The main reason they stay away is whilst they can hit, they also have no armour. So as soon as they are hit, they are killed. So there's 2 units of handgunners. They'll both be firing at this unit of longbowmen. They're looking at 5s because they're over half range. However, if they do hit, that unit has to take a break test because they're being hit by handguns fires. So we'll do this unit first. That's no firing from them. And we'll do this unit next. That's 1 hit with a 6. They do allow a saving throw, unlike arquebusing. So it's 1 saving throw of 5. That's a save, but they do have to take a break test as if they had double 6s by archer fire. So that's a double 1. Break if unit suffered any casualties, otherwise retreat disordered. So that unit retreats disordered. Luckily they didn't take any casualties, but they do retreat disordered. So that comes back to there. So because the archers have had to move back, they're already disordered, but they do need to do, the billmen need to do a disorder test. On a 1, 2, 3, they become disordered because of their colleagues moving back through them. They're fine. So obviously they've opened up their ranks and allows the archers to retire. That is all of the shooting from the Yorkist force. And yeah, we'll move over to asking for Trollope for his support, and then we'll move over to the Lancastrian turn 2. So the start of turn 2 with the special rules, we both sides get to petition Andrew Trollope, and therefore both commanders will roll a dice, see which one comes off on the top. So the Lancastrians get to choose, or get to petition Andrew Trollope. In essence, they will get to roll 1 dice. As it is turn 2, they need to get a 1 to petition Andrew Trollope. If they get that 1, then he joins their forces. And he does. Congratulations to the Lancastrian forces. They've successfully petitioned Andrew Trollope, and he now comes under orders of the Lancastrian forces. So at the end of Lancastrian movement, not a lot happened. Oxford tried to get his men-at-arms and the billmen into action. However, they failed twice, and therefore that division wouldn't move. The commander of the Lancastrians, Oxford, decided that he didn't want to assault with only part of his forces, and with the rest of them being disordered and therefore unable to move yet. So whilst he has leaving Trollope on the flank as a force to divert the attention of Warwick's forces. So we'll move over to shooting. Okay. So we'll start with Earl Devon's archers, these chaps. So they are, as nobody's moved, they're over 12. Their closest target is Exeter's archers. They're firing 3. They are over 12, that makes it 5, but they're disorder, that makes it 6. But they do get the 1 re-roll for being marksmen. So that's no hits. Looking for a 6. No hits from Devon's forces. Moving over to Oxford's forces, they will be firing back. Here, as we said last time, they're just within 12, so they get that, or they lose that modifier, but they are disordered, so they're still firing on 5s. So we're looking at 5s from that unit onto this unit. That's 1 hit, and they are a marksman, so that's 2 hits, and Warwick needs to save 2. He fails both of those, so they take 2 casualties, but crucially no disorder. And that is the end of both shooting. There is no close combat for Lancastrian turn 2. So the end of Yorkist turn 2 movement, their whole battle line has shifted to the right slightly, with the mercenaries here on the left flank advancing forward, not as far as they would like, however they're far enough. Warwick over on the right has shifted right slightly to both keep within archery range where he has that superiority, and also to show a front to the Knight of Trollope, who has a unit of mounted men-at-arms and a mounted unit of scurriers, so medium cavalry. And then in the centre, there's a little bit of a gap has opened up. However, Exeter's forces have moved forward slightly to plug that gap, so they can take on either Devon or Somerset, depending on who decides to come forward first. So we'll move on to shooting. We'll start over on the right. The men-at-arms don't have anything, if I remember correctly. No, they don't. So we'll start with the archers, and to their front, as these guys are within arc. However, they're within 12. They're their closest. And they remain within their closest, but they're now within 12 inches. So that'll be 2 lots of shooting at that 1 unit of Oxford's archers. So we are looking at 4s basic because they're within 12 inches. So that's 2 6s. That's a break test and a reroll. That's 3. So first of all, that's 3 hits. So they're saving on 5s. They take 2 casualties. I'll add them on now. They're disordered, and they will have to take a break test. So we'll do. I've actually just realised that I think I've been using a mixture of black powder and Hal Caesar. So a 6 on archer fire is a break test on ranged fire, so long as it's a 6 that happens. So we'll play from that from now onwards, because I think it was equal for both sides for turn 1. So therefore the Oxford's unit needs to take a break test because they took some 6s. So this unit is going to fire at that unit again as per, because you can only take 1 break test. Therefore we'll finish off the shooting, then we'll do the break tests. Therefore this one's going to fire again, looking at 4s. So that's 2 hits and a reroll of a 6, that would be another break test. So that's 3 hits, and looking at 3 saves of 3. Sorry, 3 saves of 5. So that's 1 save with 2 extra. That would take it to 8. And then this unit, closest unit is 13 equidistance. So we'll do a break test on them first and see what happens. So they take 2d6 minus 2 for being an excess casualty. So that's 9 minus 2 brings it down to 7. 7 on the ranged is hold your ground without penalty. So they've taken their break test. So therefore we'll use these chaps on them because they're about the same equidistance. So they'll fire over to those. They will fire and they are just within 12. They're just over. So this unit is firing on 5s for being extreme range. That's 1 hit and 1 reroll. Nope. So that's saving on 5s. They do. Secondary unit, this one looking at 4s because they're within that 12. That's 3 hits, and therefore 3 saves from Devon's archers. 1 save, 2 go through. They're now down to 6 as well. And the break test is no longer required. And over on the gunners, the hand gunners, their closest target is, then they're just under 12, although for this one his closest target is that unit of infantry, 13, yeah, so I'd say their closest target is that one because they're kind of going obliquely that side. So this unit of gunners will fire at the archers. They are looking at 5s to hit. So that's 2 hits and a break test. We'll just throw that there to remind ourselves now rather than being disordered. Therefore we're looking at 5s on the archers. 1 hit, so 1 goes through, 1 saved. And they need to take a break test in a minute. We'll finish off the other gunners. They're firing at the billmen. They're also on 5s. That's 1 hit, 1 miss, and the billmen are on 4s, I believe. Saves. Alright, so that basically requires the archers to take a break test. 7, there is no modifiers because they're not at their stamina level, therefore that means they stay where they are because they've got skirmishers. They've done their break test, and that is all of the shooting. There is no close combat, and therefore that is the end of Lancastrian turn 2. Correction, end of Yorkist turn 2. So at the end of Lancastrian movement, turn 3, Devon has moved his archers forward to form that longbow line. Unfortunately disordered the billmen. Unfortunately they didn't open their ranks up this time. And Somerset has pushed forward his archers into that battle line and reinforce them with a unit of men-at-arms, keeping a unit of billmen in reserve next to him. Trollope still hasn't moved. He is still waiting on the flank. Oxford tried to get his forces into battle, however failed both of those attempts, which then also meant that the archers couldn't be rallied off. Devon successfully rallied off one of their casualties, however that unit of archers of Oxford's front line is very fragile at the moment. So we'll move on to shooting, and we'll start with the unit of Oxford archers. Their closest target is this unit there. They are shaken, which gives them a -1. But they're within that 12 inches, so they are up to 5s with a 1 reroll. That's a hit on a 6, 1 reroll. No. So the archers need to take a morale save. So these need to take a morale save. No, they fail that. Therefore, they take their 1 casualty and need to take a break test. 10, they are stay where they are. Over on to Somerset Archers. Their closest target is this unit there. Exeter can't be targeted himself. So we're looking at. Never mind. I forgot what the range was there. Are they over 12? No, they're within 12. So they're looking at 4s. 1 hit, but 1 reroll. So 1 hit on them, and they're looking at 5s to save, and they don't. So it's a bit of attrition going on with the archery. And then moving over to this unit of archers from Devon. They will be firing most likely yeah, that's their closest one. They are just slightly over 12, they're way over 12. So they'll be firing at Norfolk's men, and we're looking at 5s being over 12 inches. 1 hit, 1 reroll, no. So we're saving on 5s, and they save that strike. And then the other unit of archers, their closest target is within their front arc. It's probably the pikemen, because they're just a little bit. 11 inches, they're just over, yeah, so the pikemen are their closest target. So, we're looking at 4s on the pikemen. 1 hit, 1 hit. So the pikemen are saving on 4s, but the Germans, because these are technically the Swiss, they're stubborn, so they get to re-roll a foul morale save. So we're looking at 4s, they get to re-roll that. No, they still take their morale save, their casualty. And that is the end of Lancastrian shooting. So it's still quite a shooting game at the moment. There is a bit of attrition going on amongst the archer units of the Yorkists. Yet to be seen how this is going to impact the game. Just need a couple of them to start routing, and then they will all run away. Moving over to Yorkist turn 3. So a very quick round of Yorkist movement, i.e. there was no movement. They have decided to stay where they are due to their advantage in firepower, continue to fire at the Lancastrians, who were bottled up between the two sets of trees, and effectively the only thing that happened was both Warwick and Exeter successfully rallied off a casualty to stabilise the line. So therefore we'll move into shooting, and this time we'll start left to right. So we'll start with our mercenaries over on the left flank. So we have these ones are within 12 inches. So they're firing 2 dice, looking at 4s on the red and white archers. That's a 1 hit, so they have to take a break test, but they do save on a 4. No, they take 1 casualty, and they are taking a break test. Just so that he's over them. So they take a break test, 2d6. See what happens. 12, they absolutely pass their break test, they stay where they are. This unit is the closest unit, is that one there. So they are also going to be on 5s because they're over 12 inches. That's 1 hit and a save of 4. No, they take a casualty. So there's no requirement to take a second break test because I've already taken 1. However, the result wouldn't have changed due to the 12 that they passed with, so therefore there's no casualty modifiers. Right, these chaps will fire at their opposite longbow number. Who are on 3. They are just over 12, so they're firing on 5s with the 1 reroll. That's 1 hit is a 6, so that's a break test required. Just the 1 save. 5s, nope, they don't take that save. That'd be on 4s. But they do have to take a break test. That's a 6. Hold your ground disordered or retreat in good order. They will hold their ground disordered. This unit will fire at Somerset. They're opposite numbers. Again, looking at 4s with the 1 reroll for marksman. Nope, so that's 2 hits, 7 on 5s. No, they take 2 casualties. Over here, continuing the onslaught against Oxford's forces. So it will be these chaps over there. I think I should always double check this one. Yeah, they're within 12. So looking at 4s with 1 reroll. That's a break test anyway, and 3 hits. Looking for 5s to save. They save 1. Sorry, save 2. They let 1 go through. So that's now them at 7. And again, that unit over there, so looking for 4s. I believe they're just outside 12. Or inside 12. Yes, they are. So that's 3 hits and looking for 3 saves of 5. So that's 1 saved. 2 go through. 7, 8, 9. So they need to take a break test minus 3. So that's 6. That is hold your ground disordered or retreat in good order. They will also hold their ground disordered. So a Round of successful shooting by the Yorkist forces. And we'll move over to Lancastrian, turn 4. So that was Lancastrian movement, turn 4. Successful in part, however, in brief, they managed to get their infantry moving, and it did a passage of lines through the archers. It was a very confused passage of lines, and a lot of units are now disordered. Hungerford over here and Somerset's men-at-arms are both disordered. Oxford's archers, all the archers are disordered through that passage lines or from the shooting, and they didn't quite get the charge forward that they wanted to. Trollope has remained static. Again, he is waiting for that contact to be made, and therefore he can try and have an effect on the flank. But Oxford and the Lancastrians, they either had to stand and take the arrow storm, which was not going in their favour, or they had to charge forward to try and close that distance to mitigate some of those archer and the firings from the archers. So we're now on turn 4, and we'll move over to shooting. There's not going to be a lot, I think, because all the men-at-arms and the billmen have now blocked a lot of the line of fire. However, we can get a firing from here over to the pikemen. That will be 3 hits, but looking at 5s because of the disorder. 1 reroll, so that was 0 hits. That's 0 hits from those archers, which is probably quite useful. And that is it from everybody else. Everybody's out at 6 inches, and the men-at-arms don't carry any long-range weaponry. So we'll move over to Yorkist, turn 4. That's the end of Yorkist movement turn 4. Not a lot of movement from the Yorkist perspective. They're still content to allow the Lancastrians to come towards them. And whilst a number of the Lancastrians are disordered, they weren't really in a position to capitalise on that, so they have just reorganised their centre formation by bringing their men-at-arms and their halberdiers out. But they're in a nice position with that arc that they can still protect their flank based off the farmhouse and the men-at-arms, and it neuters Trollope's cavalry somewhat because of that Z formation they've got, that S formation they've got, which is quite useful. So we'll move over to shooting, and we'll start over here with the mercenaries on the the left-hand side of the Yorkist faction. So the closest target, they are at 10. They are at 9. So these are the closest target. They're the closest target. They're the closest target for these 3. The men-at-arms have got no weapons, so we'll do these 3 first. So we're starting off with the gunners. They're going to be hitting on 4s, both miss. These gunners hitting on 4s, both hit, and that's a break test because they're hit by cannon fire. And the archers, they're going to be hitting on 4s with the 1 reroll. That's 2 hits, 1 reroll. That's 2 hits, so that's 4 saves I need to make are 4s, and they take 2 casualties, but they do take a break test. So the 2 casualties, and they need a break test. So 2d6, that's 6. That is hold your position, disordered or retreat in good order. They will hold their position disordered. Moving over to these archers, they will be attacking Somerset's men-at-arms. Now there is a -1 to hit men-at-arms from the front, actually from any flank, because they are heavily armoured. So they will be attacking on 5s with the 1 reroll. They need that. 5s, nope, absolutely nothing, so that's them. These guys will be, these chaps will be firing at those in front of them, and they'll be firing at those in front of them, and everyone's within 6 inches. So we're looking at 4s. These guys are the halberdiers. That's a break test and 3 hits. 7 on 4s, they take 1 casualty. These guys, these are also halberdiers, so they're only 7 on 4s, they don't get that extra minus because of being heavily armoured. That is a break test with that's 3 6s. So that is a break test and saving on 4s. 1 save, 2 go through. And we're looking at a break test for these chaps. That's a 3. It's break if shaken, otherwise retreat disordered. So they're not shaken, therefore they have to retreat disordered. This essentially puts them back where they started. And they are now disordered. It's going well for the Lancastrian advance. Cool, that is the end of Yorkist shooting. There is still no close combat, and therefore we'll hand over to Lancastrian turn 5. So that was the end of Lancastrian movement turn 5. Slightly better than what they have done beforehand, although not quite as successful. A quick summary. Over here on Lancastrian right flank, the archers are pushed forward to take on the gunners and the pikemen. The billmen are still disordered due to the shooting from last turn. The archers have moved up to support Somerset's forces, which have charged. So you've got the men-at-arms charging here. However, the billmen managed to get through, not quite as far as they wanted. They were about an inch shy of Exeter's bowmen here, but they also disordered themselves, getting through their own archers, which were also disordered. So, successful, but not very successful. To their left flank, you have a unit of Oxford's billmen have also managed to drive home and charge the archers. The archers do closing fire. Whilst there was loads of hits, there were also loads of saves, and that was really good for the Oxford forces. And over on the far right, the scurriers tried to charge the bowmen but failed. They only cantered round. However, the men-at-arms, mounted men-at-arms, managed to charge their dismounted counterparts with a clash of arms between those two about to commence this round. So we'll start off with shooting, and we'll start off with the archers over here, and they will commence their firing now. So they're shooting, I should say, being archers rather than bowmen. Right, 6. I think their closest point is still the pikemen at 6 inches. So there is no point blank range, so they're going to be hitting on 4s, which is their standard to hit. So over there, looking for 4s. That's 2 hits with a reroll for being marksman. That's 4 hits. We're looking at 3 hits. We're looking at force to save, and the Swiss are stubborn, so they get to re-roll one of their saves. One of their misses. They save 1, take 1 casualty, take 2 casualties. Okay, they're outside of 6 inches. They will have nobody to shoot at because their front arc is blocked by the Somerset bowmen, men-at-arms. However, Oxford can fire at these chaps over here. They're outside of 12, but they can still see them. So we're looking at 5s because of range. No, 1 reroll. No, absolutely nothing. So that's all of the shooting. Oh, correction, standby. These can fire because they do have a short range firing. They are disordered, so they'll be hitting on 5s, basically throwing spears and hurling abuse, etc. 3 attacks they're looking at. 5s have been disordered. 1 hit, and it's a 6, so you get to do a saving throw. They failed the saving throw, they used the wrong colours, that's why they probably failed. So that's a 4, and they need to do a break test because they are hit by range fire. So 2d6, 4, break if shaken, otherwise retreat disordered. I will get it right at some point. So they get to retreat disordered. Token. So even though they are disordered themselves, they've managed to disorder the bowman in front of them. Probably quite successful, actually. Okay, so we'll now move on to combat. There are a number of combats here. There are 3 ongoing. So we'll start with the men-at-arms in the centre. Okay, so we'll start with the close combat, men-at-arms in the centre of the Somerset versus Exeter's men-at-arms. So these men-at-arms are not actually small units, they're generally larger units, and therefore I use them as the same stats as their halberdier counterparts, but with the men-at-arms special rules. So in essence they are fighting on 7s, sustained 7, short range. They don't have a short range apart from being within that supporting element. And they've got their morale save of 4 and with a stamina of 6. So luckily they're both exactly the same. So they have an attack of 7. Somerset is charging, so normally it's a base of 4 to hit, so they are charging. Neither of them are shaken or with any damage, so Somerset on the red dice will be hitting on 3s. Exeter on the white dice will be hitting on 4s. Both of them have got tough fighter, so they get to reroll 1 miss each. So we're looking for 3s on red, 4s on white. 3s on red, so success, 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 and success. And then 4s on white. Okay, so white have hit 2 and they get to reroll 1. That's a hit. And red have hit 4, get to reroll 1. That's a fail. So we're currently on 3 hits each. However, we do get to add in supporting fires. So each supporting unit can use their supporting value. So from a Yorkist perspective, they've got 2 units that are supporting. The archers here to their left and the billmen to their rear. Both of these are on 3 as their short range. There's no modifiers because neither of them are shaken, so looking at 4s. Okay, so that is 4 hits, so that's 7 in total. From a Lancastrian perspective, they're supported by the billmen to their left and the archers to their rear. So the archers to the rear are a standard 4 because there's no modifiers. They've hit once. And the billmen to their left, they're hitting on 5 because they are disordered and they don't get anything. Okay, so the Lancastrians are saving 7 hits on 4s. They are stubborn, which means they get to reroll 1 of their losses. So they've taken 2 casualties at minimum, they've taken 3 casualties. So I'll add that on now. They've taken 3 casualties. The Yorkist have suffered 5 hits and they will save on 4s. Rerolling 1. Okay, they've taken 2 casualties. So, at the moment, actually after that, the Yorkist faction have held their ground. Therefore, Somerset have lost that combat by 1 and they need to take a break test. Now, the men-at-arms are valiant, which means they get to ignore the first break test that they want. If it's a bad one, they can ignore it and they get to reroll, and that second one stands. So we're looking at 2d6 is 3, so on a normal case, that would be break if shaken, otherwise give ground together with supports or disordered. In this case, they are going to re-roll that and see what happens. Well, that's not very good. And it's a double 1. That's probably the worst one they could have had. And that is a break. So they've completely broken. They should have gone for their first one. So that has broken. However, because they've broken, their supports now have to test. As for these guys, 7 minus 1 because they are shaken. I don't actually know, sorry. So it's 7, and so I give ground in good order together with support. So they have to retreat 6. Which brings them back to here. They've already disordered, so they retain their disorder, and then the bowmen also have to test 4. Break if shaken, otherwise give ground together with support, all disordered. So they're not shaken, therefore they have to give ground. They can't make 6, therefore they have to come back 12. Here. And they are disordered. So that was a success for Duke of York and the Yorkist faction. They've managed to rout 1 unit of Somerset men-at-arms and push back some archers and the other unit of halberdiers. We'll now move on to the second round of combat, which is between the Lancastrian billmen and Warwick's archers. So, the billmen are on 7 attacks, and the archers are on 5. So because they're charging, they're not disordered or anything like that, so they're hitting on 3s. There is no reroll for these guys, so that is 5 hits. The archers are hitting on 4s because they're static, and that is 1 hit. From a supporting perspective, the billmen have already gone home, they can't support anyway, but there are 2 units here to their left and to their rear that can support. So from a Warwick perspective, I'll roll all these together because all I'm saying they're all looking at 4s. That's 2 extra hits. So, Oxford needs to take 3 saves of 4. He saves 2 of those, so he takes 1 casualty. Remove those. So he takes 1 casualty, and Warwick needs to take 5 saves of 5. He saves 2, so he takes 3 casualties. So, there you go, 1 here. He takes 1. Okay, so Warwick has lost that combat and therefore needs to take a break test. That's a 3. Break if shaken, otherwise give ground together with supports, all disordered. So, give ground, all disordered with supports. So everybody comes back 6 inches. So everybody comes back 6 inches. So Oxford could keep up the fight, and I think he will do in this case. The reason being, if he stays there, he's just going to turn into a human pinata. So he's going to continue to that fight. It'll save that unit and also take out a number of archers from firing on the next turn. And then finally, the last combat being the 2 sets of men-at-arms. So the mounted men-at-arms, again, they're normally fielded as a small unit, but these are a large unit. They have a charge of 9. They have lances, which takes a -1 off the saving throw of the formed men-at-arms. So we're looking at, we'll do 7, 8 and 9. So they're charging, so they are looking at 3s with 1 reroll. That's good. And then 1 reroll. That's good as well. So that is 7 hits. The men-at-arms are on 7, looking at 4s with 1 reroll. That's good. So they have hit 6 times. Looking at supports, they are within support, but they've already supported, so they can't support. And these guys are those scurriers with lances, and they can support with 3 hits. So they're looking at 4s. 1 hit. Right. So 7 of the attacks against these are being done at a -1 because they're hit by lances. Therefore they are saving on 5s. That's 1, 2, and then they get to, because they're stubborn, they get to reroll 1 of them. No, so they take 5 casualties, and the other one is saving on 4 because it's the normal hit. He saves as well. In return, the horses are saving on 4s, and they get 1 reroll. Okay, so they take 2 hits. So the horses have taken 2 hits, and the men-at-arms are now on 5. So, Warwick has lost that combat by 3. So he needs to take a break test. 7, which is give ground together in good order with supports. And I think he will take that rather than use the... Okay. And the horses are going to continue their charge forward. That is the end of Lancastrian turn 5. So that is the end of Yorkist turn 5 movement. The left hand flank has decided to advance forward with the Swiss mercenaries driving their pikes home into the archers. They took a number of closing fire hits, however there was no casualties and the break test was successful. In the centre, Exeter's men-at-arms have charged into Hungerford's unit, that he's commanding for the Earl of Devon, with a unit of archers moving up into support of those men-at-arms. In the centre, Norfolk, I think it is, has charged in against Somerset's billmen because they're disordered from that final attack. So that is going on, and then the rest of the Yorkist right flank over here has had to stay where it is, mainly because most of it's in combat, and whilst the Lancastrians were winning the combat, there is actually a weight of numbers here that could potentially turn the tide in the Yorkist favour. So we'll start with shooting. There's not a lot of shooting because most of the forces are engaged in combat. So the only ones that can really shoot is this unit and this unit. So 20 inches is the range. So they can't shoot over there. No. We'll say they can do, but they're just distracted. So they're going to be on sevens because over half range disordered. Yeah, they're not actually going to be able to hit them. And then we've got this unit of archers here. They can hit the Scurriers over there, and they will do. So they are looking at 5s for being over extreme range. That is all misses, but they do get the reroll, and that's a complete miss as well. So that is all of the shooting. The gunners can't see through the trees. They're engaged in combat. So that is it from a shooting perspective. So we'll move on to combat. And we'll start over with the mercenaries. So the mercenaries are, in essence, they're a phalanx, which means they get to ignore any drawn results on a of 2. Okay, so the pikemen are charging in against the bowmen. They have 7 hits, so they're looking at 3s to hit. So that's 3 attacks, all 3 successful. The archers are hitting back on 4s. And that is 3 as well. From a supporting element, he's engaged in combat, so he can't support. There's no return supports for the Lancastrians. However, for the Swiss, we have this unit here and that unit there to do both left and right, and they provide 2 support attacks each. Yep. So we're looking at 4s for both of them. That's 2 hits. Okay, so the Lancastrians, Devon, is saving 5 hits on 5. That's 4 hit save, so they've taken 1 casualty. And the Swiss are saving 3 attacks on 4. And they get to reroll 1 because they're stubborn. They don't. They also take 1 casualty. Yeah, fine. So that's 1 casualty each. So that combat is a draw. Neither side is shaken, so neither side has to take a break test, and that fight continues on to the next combat. Over here. Over here in the centre we have the men-at-arms versus the billmen. So the men-at-arms have an attack of 7. The billmen also have an attack of 7. The men-at-arms are charging, so they are on 3s. That's 4 hits, and they have 1 for tough fighter, or 1 extra for tough fighter. That's a miss. And then the billmen are fighting back on 7s, so they're hitting on 4s. 1, 2, and 3. So that's 3 success hits, and they don't have a reroll. From a supporting element, the bowmen can support the men-at-arms, and they're on 3 hits, looking for 4s. That's an extra 2 hits from a Yorkist perspective. And these archers, can they add their supporting? They could do, but they're going to support their counterparts in the next combat. So, Devon. Sorry, yeah, we're going to start with Devon. Devon is saving 6 attacks at 4, no rerolls, and he has taken 4 casualties. Bring it up to 5. So he's taken 4 casualties. And Exeter are saving 3 attacks on 4s. That's 1 save, 2 go through, but they do get stubborn. 2 go through. They've taken 2 casualties. So they are on 4. Okay, so that combat has gone in the favour of the Yorkists by a difference of 2. Therefore, Hungerford and Devon need to take a break test. So that's 6 minus 2, because that is the difference in the combat result. So that brings it down to 4. Break if shaken, otherwise give ground together with supports all disordered. Luckily for Hungerford, he's not yet shaken, so he goes back 6 inches. They all kind of go back 6 inches, don't they? So he goes back 6 inches with supports. He had no supports, and because he's charged, they are going to continue that charge next time. But he is now disordered. Okay, so moving on to this fight. Somerset has 7 attacks. Norfolk has 7 attacks. Norfolk is charging, so they're hitting on 3s. That is 5 hits. Somerset is defending, but they are disordered, so they are hitting on 5s. That's 3 hits. Okay, so from a supporting element, we have 1 to the rear, which is disordered, so hitting on 5s. That's 2 hits. And then we'll say that was from the left. They're not disordered, they're just hitting on 4s. That's also 2 hits. Okay, so Norfolk is saving 7 attacks on 4. He saves 4 of them, so he takes 3 casualties. And these are the first casualties he has taken. And then Somerset is saving 5 times on 4s. So he has taken 2 casualties. So that is a loss for Norfolk and the Yorkist course. They need to take a break test -1. That is an 8 down to 7. And in good order together with supports. So whilst they charge forward, they've been held off and they've bounced back 6 inches. Somerset can't do anything about that because he's disordered, and therefore that is it from that element of combat. Okay, moving over to further combat, and we've got the Oxfordian billmen. We'll start with first against the archers. So the billmen, this is sustained, even though I think all the values are the same in War of the Roses. So we're looking at 7 for the billmen, 5 for the archers. The billmen won the last one, so they are on 3s. That's 4 hits. They don't have any support, unfortunately for them. Whereas the archers are hitting on 4s because they're not shaken yet or disordered, and that is 4 hits they have caused. They can also be supported by their left and their right, because they can't really support each other. So that is those ones are going to be hitting on 5s because they're disordered. That's nothing. And the billmen to the rear hitting on 4s. That's 2 hits. Alrighty. So Warwick's forces have to take 4 saves at 5+. And they save 2, so they take 2 casualties. They take 2 casualties, and Oxford are saving 6 attacks on a 4. And they have taken 3 casualties. So I'll just add those on. 5 and 6. So Oxford has lost that combat by 1. The archers are now shaken, but it's Oxford that needs to take that break test -1. That is an 8, brings it down to a 7, which is give ground in good order, together with supports. He has no supports, therefore he just gives ground in good order. And again, similar to their neighbours, they've pushed them back. Right, finally, the last combat is that of the mounted men-at-arms versus the dismounted men-at-arms. Okay, so this is a sustained combat. Yeah, which basically means the lance is no longer in effect because they've gone forward, they've broken their lances, it's now sustained. So the knights, dismounted knights, are on 7 attacks. The mounted knights are on 6 because they've lost that momentum and their advantage of that. But they do get a +1 for winning the combat, so they are hitting on 3s with 1 reroll because they're a tough fighter. So that's 3 hits with the reroll. No, that's 3 hits from the mounted knights. From the foot knights, they're hitting on 4s. Well, that's 3 hits with 1 reroll. Nope. But they do have support from their rear. They are hitting on 4s. And that is 2 hits. So Warwick is saving 3 hits at 4. So he saves 1. Can he take? He is stubborn, so he's taken 2 hits. So Warwick has taken 2 hits, and Trollope's forces need to take 5 saves of 4. They've taken 3. Can they re-roll 1? Okay, so So they've taken 2 hits as well. So that brings it to 6, and I get to add the spare 1 onto those. They've taken 2. That brings them up to 4 on their 7. So that is a draw. However, because it is a draw, the knights, the dismounted knights, are now shaken in at 6 stamina, so therefore they will be losing because they have drawn that combat, and therefore they need to take a break test. So 5. Give ground disordered together with supports. However, they are valiant and they haven't used their rule yet, so they're going to re-roll that. That's a 4. That's even worse. Break if shaken, otherwise give ground together with things. So they are going to break because they have shaken. So that valiant rule is not very useful at the moment, it seems. The 2 men at arms that have had it have not done very well with it. So that is Warwick's right flank in that jeopardy. The knights, they didn't charge, so they will retire 1 move to their rear and realign over here. And that is the end of Yorkist turn 5. So that's the end of Lancastrian movement turn 6. A number of charges took place. The Oxfordian billmen charged. Their closing fire caused them to take a casualty, which means they're now shaken. Their break test meant they are now disordered. They've decided to hold their ground. Disordered. It seemed to be a bit of a last throw of the dice of the Lancastrians. Somerset's billmen also charged the billmen of Norfolk. Bit of a hasty one for them because they are at 5 stamina versus the 3, but they are supporting their comrades going forward. Trollope's cavalry tried to charge but failed, which then led to Oxford's forces under Buckingham charging the archers. Again, they had some closing fire, but only 1 casualty was put on, and the break test was absolutely fine. Somerset's archers in the centre have moved round to A, support their billman comrades, and B, to fire at Exeter's bowmen, which are in the open, and have some fire from there. And the rest of the forces have kind of stayed as they are because they're either in combat or they are providing support to their comrades. So we'll move into shooting. There's not a lot of shooting, with the exception of the Somerset archers firing at Exeter's archers. So we're looking at 4s. So that's 2 hits with a reroll because they're marksmen. No. And we're looking at 5 to save. Oh. Nope. That's 2 casualties that those archers have taken. Right. Other than that, I think that's all of the shooting available because Oxford's forces can't see them because of the combat that's going on, and the forces at the back are also of Devon are blocked by other sites. So we'll move on to combat. Okay, so that was a draw last time. So we are in a sustained fight. Everybody's still on 7 dice, or throwing 7 dice. About 5 for the archers, I should say. And then 7 for the Swiss pikemen. So we'll do those first. We're looking at 4s because there's no charge advantage or win advantage. Right, that is 4 hits. And from the archers, again, looking for 4s, that's 5 hits. It's pretty decent. From a supporting element, there are 1, 2. If they're within 6, they could support that fight. Yeah, so we'll have the 2 sets of handgunners supporting the fight. So we're looking at 4s. That's an extra 2 hits. And the archers will support over there when it gets to it. So we're looking at Falkenberg's mercenaries are saving 5 hits on 4. That's 3 save, but they are stubborn, so they get to save 4 hits. So they've taken 1 casualty. And Devon's forces are saving 6 hits on 5. And they have saved 2. So they've taken 4 casualties. So I'll just add those on now. So these are on balls. Yeah, because they've got extra balls. Because they will support that side. Yeah, sorry. And these are on. Okay, so that means the mercenaries have won that fight. Falkenberg's forces. They have won by 3. So they need to. The archers need to take a break test -3. That is 5. Give ground disordered together with supports. Well, they have no supports, and they need to give ground disordered. Now, the issue they have is that there is no real way for them to give ground very easily. So what we will say is that they can go that way, because that's away from the enemy, and they get to go 12. Because of the success, they are going to effectively reposition there. Second combat, we'll do the men-at-arms over here. It's a sustained fight, so it's 7 attacks each, because 1 is men-at-arms, 1 is halberdiers. So Yorkist forces are attacking on 3s because they won the last combat. That's 6 hits, and they get to reroll 1 for tough fighter. That's 6 hits. Hungerford is hitting back 7 hits, but he's on 5s because he's disordered. That's 1 hit, and he doesn't have a tough fighter. From a supporting perspective, the archers here will support him. So looking at 4s, so that's 1 hit. These guys don't have support because they've already fought in combat. They can't support, and they're the wrong side of the combat. So Hungerford is saving 7 attacks on 4s. He saves 2 of them, so he's taken 5 casualties with York taking 2 attacks, so saving on 4s. Tough fighter allows him to try to save 1 of them, so he takes 1 casualty. So he gets to 5, he goes to 6, and the rest of the casualties go on his supporting ally, which brings it up to 4. Okay, so that is a break test required by Hungerford at 2d6 minus 4. That's 9 down to 5. Give ground disordered together with supports. So he's still holding in, he's just begrudgingly giving ground. So everybody now needs to give ground 6. Oxford can go back with them. Gets to go back 6. And he gets to go back 6. He's still disordered. He's like that. They're going to continue the attack. Going forward. And the Billmen of Somerset charged. So they are hitting on 3s. Because they're not yet at their stamina level. So they're hitting on 3s. That's 3 hits. Billmen of Norfolk are hitting on 4s. And that is 4 hits. From a supporting element, these bowmen are supporting Somerset. So that'll be an extra 3 on 4s. That's 3 hits. The archers are supporting on 3s. That's 2 hits. And I think that is it, because the rest will then support the other combats. So that's 6 hits each. So Norfolk saving on 5s. Throw it in there. Saves 1, so he takes 5 casualties. Somerset saving on 5s. Takes 3 casualties. Okay, so he takes 3, bringing it up to 6, and his supports take the extra 2. Brings it to there, and he takes 1 extra casualty, and the others go over there. Okay, so Norfolk, the Yorkists, have lost that combat by 2, and therefore they need to take their break test. 2d6 minus 2. That brings it from 7 down to 5. Give ground disorder together with supports. Right, they can't quite make it, so they have to go back. Oh, connected. Over there. Back there. Yeah, that's probably about it. Okay, so that is that. Supports from over there. Also need to go back 6 inches. Oh. And both of those are now disordered. Somerset can't advance because he's already shaken, so the best he can do is effectively stay where he is to provide that extra bit of support as required. Both of these we'll do Oxford's Billmen first. So Oxford Billmen are charging, but they are shaken and disordered, so So that basically brings them from what was a 3 up to a 4. Warwick's bowmen are shaken, which puts them on a 5. So the charging bowmen are hitting on 4s. That's 5 hits. And then the stationary bowmen are hitting on 5s. That's 3 hits. From a supporting element, Oxford has the archers behind. They can support, so they're going to throw an extra 1 in there, hitting on 4s. But from a supporting element here, those archers are going to support over here. So we're looking at 4s. That's an extra hit. And these billmen will support the archers against the billmen over here. Okay, so Warwick has to take 6 saving throws of 5. He saves 2, so he takes 4 hits. And Oxford needs to take 4 saving throws of 4. He takes 1 casualty. Okay, so that extra casualty from them goes over here. They had those, they go on to a 4, 6, and then the rest are thrown out. Okay, so Warwick lost that fight by 3, so 2d6 minus 3. That's not very good. Ooh, that has completely and utterly broken. So these infantry have broken. Those chaps in thingy, 5 give ground disorder. So they need to give ground. Because they are shaken and disordered, there's not a lot they can do, so they kind of just have to sit there. And then we'll go on to the last combat, which is Buckingham's unit against the archers. Archers are again only putting 5 rounds down, or 5 hits down range, versus the 7 of the charging billmen. So we're looking at 3s for the billmen, 6 hits, and we're looking at 4s. 4s for the archers. That's 3 hits. Support from behind by the billmen adds an extra hit. They're outside of 6 and they've already used their support. So we have the archers saving on 5, 6 dice on 5. It's pretty decent. They take 2 casualties. And the billmen are saving 4 attacks on 4. And they take 3 casualties. So they take 3. They take 2. Which means Buckingham's forces have lost that combat by 1. They need to take a break test. That's 8 down to 7. Give ground in good order together with supports. So the seesaw battle continues. That goes back to there. And they are hit. Okay, that is the end of Lancastrian turn 6. end of Yorkist turn 6 movement. In essence, the only thing that's really happened is the mercenaries have charged in to Somerset's bowmen. Because they were just outside that front arc, they have got in without having reaction fire. And the handgunners have advanced onto the flanks of the pikemen to provide some fire support, a support in combat, and also some fire support into the remaining archers and billmen of the Lancastrians. The only other thing that happened is down here, the unit of billmen conducted a charge into Oxford's billmen on an initiative, and that was it. Everybody else is either shaken or disordered. Cool, we'll now move into shooting, and we'll start off with the handgunners over at the top. They will shoot at these chaps. Yeah. So we're looking at 2 shots, looking at 4s. So 1 hit, looking at 5 to save, fails to save, but they do need to take a break test because they're hit by cannon fire. That's a 6. Hold your ground disordered or retreat in good order. Well, they're already on. So actually that's down to a 5 because they've got a casualty over. Hold your ground disordered or retreat in good order. They're going to hold their ground disordered. It makes sense because they're already disordered. These guys are going to fire into the flanks of those. Looking at 4s. Both hit. Forced to save. 1 saves, 1. It's a break test anyway, because they are at -1. 5, that is hold your ground disordered or retreat in good order. They'll hold their ground disordered. They're in combat. Oh, they could have fired. We'll see what happens. Look at it. 6s. Oh no, 5s. Original one. Another one for the marksman. Saves both. Right. These are going to attack those in front of them. They're not disordered, so they're looking at 4s. Get to reroll that. So 3 hits and a break test. 2 casualties. And they do get to do a break test -2. That's 4. Break if shaken, otherwise give us a retreat disordered. So they're now being pushed back. And they're disordered. And that is all of the shooting. Alright, we'll move over to combat. So this is a sustained fight, so we're still looking at 7 attacks each. So the Minotaurs are on 3s because they're not shaken yet, and they won the last one. So that's 4 hits, and they do get the 1 reroll. No. The Billmen are shaken disorder, so they're on 5s. That's 3 hits, no reroll for them. But they do get, so they each get support 4s, looking for Lancaster, so the Yorkist, and 5s because they're disordered from the bowman. And that's 1 hit. Alright, okay, so we're looking at 4 saves of 4 on the men-at-arms. That's all of them saved. And we're looking at 6 saves of 4 on the billman. That's 5 gone through. So that basically is now 4. So it's 2d6 minus 5 for the break test. It brings it to a 5. Give ground disordered together with supports. So the billman, so the bowmen will say have run off because they get to there. These guys have just about managed to stay on the board, but they are basically being pushed off by the successful men-at-arms. Right, so the pikemen are charging, so they're on 3s. That's 6 hits, and the bowmen are defending, they're on 4s. That's 5 hits. From a supporting element, these can support, and I think they're out, but they're in. And so that both of these can support, they're both disordered, so they will be hitting on 5s. That's only 1 hit. And from a supporting element of those ones, we have these hitting on 4s, that's 2 extra hits. And that is it from that perspective. Okay, so the pikemen are saving on 4s, they're saving 6 hits on 4s with a chance to reroll 1 because they are stubborn. So they've saved 3. They've saved 4, so they've taken 2 hits. The bowman needs to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 saves on 5. And they save 2. So they've taken 5 hits. So all those casualties gone to them. So they now take a break test minus 3. It's down to 6. And 6 is give ground in good order together with supports. So everybody's basically moving backwards. 6. 6. Somerset also just go. 6. And the pikemen are going to continue their assault. Oh no, they took 2 casualties, didn't they? They won't be continuing their assault because they are now shaken. One final combat, and that's the billman versus billman down here. So these billmen are charging, they are very fresh, so they are hitting on 3s. That's 5 hits. The Oxford billmen are hitting on 5s because they're disordered, and that's 1 hit. So, 1 save of 4, and they take a casualty. And we're looking at 5 saves of 4 of Oxford. They take 3 casualties. So from a supporting element, these can support to their flank. They're looking at 4s. That's 3 hits. They can support to their rear. They're looking at 5s. Well, that's another 3 hits. They're to their rear. They can support, but they're on 5s because they're shaken. It's 1. Alright, okay, so one more save of 4 for Warwick. He saves his. And from Oxford needs to save 6 on force. Okay, so he takes an extra 4 casualties. Okay, well, you can't really give those extra casualties to anywhere else. So he's now basically on 2d6 minus 6. Although it should probably be. And it's the 3, so that has completely gone. He is gone. And his supports basically stay as they are. So that is the end of the game today. The Lancastrians have lost 3 units entirely, with the Yorkists losing 2. There are 4 units of Yorkist forces that have reached their stamina level, with 6 units of the Lancastrians reaching their stamina level. Therefore, I'd say the weight of advantage is in the side of the Yorkist forces, with the men-at-arms at the top successfully pushing back their adversaries, and will most likely push them off the table at the end if we went on to a turn 7. The mercenaries in the centre have certainly earned their pay today, and they're looking quite strong, with just the pikemen now reaching stamina after a number of rounds of combat. And then down here, the unit of billmen is still quite fresh, as well as actually the bowmen on their flank. How they would stand up to Trollope's cavalry is yet to be decided, but however, as it failed to attack in the last turn, we won't actually see what happens, but it's likely that Trollope will do what Trollope normally does and go and defect to the Yorkist force because they're winning. So ironically, as per the last game, this has very much been a left flank strong force from both sides, with the Yorkist left flank again pushing forward and round into the centre. The Lancastrian left flank has again pushed forward very successfully against Warwick, with the support from Trollope as well. That really has come in useful for the Lancastrian forces, has becoming really useful for the Lancastrian forces. However, the Oxford-London road is now open, and they will push the Lancastrian forces north towards St Albans and Nottingham and that area. So that is the end of this game. I have been the Fighting Sailor. Please like, comment and subscribe to the channel. I wish you fair winds and following seas.